Welcome everyone, Dylan Gemelli here today with a brand new video for you. So today we're going to take a look at Equipoise, also known as Boldenone. First, let me just remind you that I am not a doctor. I am not indicating for you to use any of the things that I discuss. Whatever you do with this information is completely up to you. I have no control over that. This is for your entertainment purposes only. So let's move on and let's kind of get going on Equipoise here. Now, it's also known as Boldenone undecilonate, all right, or EQ. Now, it's a veterinarian steroid, and it was actually developed by CBA, and it was to be a form of actually a long-acting injectable D-ball. A lot of people don't know that. Now, the intended use initially was in the horse and cattle industry. Now, in general, EQ comes in oil suspension, all right, and it can be injected into animals every 6 weeks. There's no actual legitimate version of it that's been approved by any government anywhere, just so that we're clear on that, in the world for human use. So I just want everybody to be aware of that before we even get into it. All the Equipoise on the market is either from approved veterinarian labs or made in underground laboratories meant for black market use. So what is it? Well, when you look at it on paper, you can actually see that it's basically the same hormone as D-ball is. But there's one huge difference and change there. The D-ball hormone is 17-alpha alkylated for oral use, and it only has an effective 8-hour half-life because of that. Now, EQ completely lacks that 17-alpha alkylated group, all right? So, it actually has a very, very long undecilonate ester chain attached to it. Now, the ester chain makes Boldenone extremely oil-soluble, so to the point where in its raw form, before it's actually suspended in oil, it's already a sort of like oily substance, and it's kind of got like a syrupy consistency to it. Enzymes in your liver are actually going to cleave off the ester chain from the Boldenone hormone, finally seeing it free, so then it can interact with androgen receptors within your muscle cells. I want to talk to you a little bit about the side effects. All right, it's pretty mild when it comes to side effects, but it still has some, just the way any steroid would. So these side effects are common, to most steroids. Your acne, your unnatural hair growth, oily skin, prostate issues are possible, deepening of the voice, unnatural hair loss. These are possible, not probable. That's just kind of stuff that's listed with any steroid. This kind of got to be. One of the bigger problems with it is it's known for causing acne on the chest, back, and the shoulder area. So if you're acne prone, make sure that you use like antibacterial and anti-acne soap, and you need to lotion, yourself daily. Now, there's another side effect that's kind of that anecdotal nature, and that is the boost in appetite that you're going to see possibly. It's been reported by some people out there. I've seen a lot of people talk about it, and I've seen a lot of people that say they've never ever had that occur. I know I've never had it occur, but it is possible. All right. So, and generally most people don't see that till later on in the cycle, like that 8-week period. But it is possible. So you might want to be aware of that, especially if you're cutting, to keep that under control. Also, another one that is kind of anecdotal, where some people have said it and some people haven't, is that it's increased or induced anxiety. And people that are anxiety prone have definitely contributed some information on having issues with that. But once again, that's nothing solid or concrete there. That's just variant from user to user. But it's something that you might want to be aware of, especially if you're anxiety prone. Half-life. Now, it has a very long half-life, 14 days. So in addition to that, it can remain in the body for months or even years. So it's not recommended for use during any kind of active sports season that you're getting tested, because you're about a 99% chance you're going to test positive. So you got to be aware of that as well. Now, EQ is used by athletes and bodybuilders to increase endurance, muscle mass, and the production of red blood cells in the body. And that's another side effect too. red blood cell count can be increased. So hematocrit levels, you got to keep an eye on this, and you generally recommended to donate blood, halfway through your cycle, because it can increase your red blood cell count, and you definitely want to make sure that you're aware of that and you're taking care of that. And you should be getting pre, mid, and post cycle blood work anyway, so that you can stay on top of that. Now, it's something that you've got to be patient with. If you're not a patient person, this is definitely not for you. All right, it's gradual. It's slow, steady gains during your cycle. You just have to be aware that it's not going to be drastic. It's not going to be quick. All right, it takes time. It's one of those compounds that it needs to be ran longer. It needs to have patience. Okay, dosing. Everybody's different with this, okay? 400 to 800 milligrams. EQ is one of those things. I'm a guy, I always tell people moderate doses, moderate doses, moderate doses. If you really want to get the most out of this, this is one of those ones that needs to be bumped a little bit more. I generally never tell people to run at less than 500 milligrams simply because it's just not as effective. 600 to 800 is a pretty good, range there to go with, but 500 is okay. I just, a lot of people end up saying they're disappointed or they don't, didn't care for it. Well, a lot of times what I see is they're running it too low or too short. It's one of those things that you want to run longer, 16 weeks. When you're running it 8 and 10 weeks, you're probably not going to see much of anything. A lot of people don't even tend to see it start working until like 7 or 8 weeks where they really start to see it. So if you're running it too short or too low, you're probably going to be pretty disappointed in it. More recently, it's become a favorite amongst power lifters and just any sort of bodybuilders that are going after strength and size especially, but it can be used as cutting as well, and that's one of the things about it. It's so versatile. All right, a lot of people use it as a replacement for DECA. Now, it's not going to be as pronounced and profound as DECA, but it can definitely add quality muscle mass and strength gains without a lot of the higher and nastier side effects. Okay, one of the other things that it can do is that it can, increase endurance, and a lot of people don't talk about that or don't realize that. Most steroid compounds don't generally do that, but Equipoise actually can. In medical use, it can promote EPO, which is a stimulating factor that in turn stimulates the bone marrow growth. All right, and that leads to an increased production of red blood cells like we were talking about. More red blood cells means more hemoglobin and higher oxygen carrying capacity. So it could also result in changes to electrolyte levels. So that's something that you need to be aware of as well. Now, I just want people to be aware that just because it's more on the mild side, it doesn't mean that there aren't side effects, and I've discussed those. So you still have to be aware and be on top of those. Just understand that EQ is very versatile, and you can use it in any sort of scenario, bulking, recomp, or cutting, and it's going to be effective all which way. You can attempt to do that with any compound, but some are just more suitable for certain areas. Well, EQ happens to be suitable in all areas. So that's another thing that makes it, more sought after or more desirable for a lot of people. So, and detection times, just if you're wondering about it, it can take as long as 6 weeks for it to fully leave your body, but it can be detected for up to 18 months. All right. So I don't get into all that. I don't like to advise on that. People always ask me, how do I get this out of my system? I don't know. I just don't, because I don't want people to say, well, Gemelli said this or that, and then the testings are so strange now. I mean, they're able to detect things for a lot longer. So if you're trying to get around something, my suggestion is just don't do it. Okay? I'm not one of those, oh, you used this and that, you're a terrible person, you shouldn't. That's not what I'm saying. I don't get into all that at all. But I would just say it's not worth the risk. If you're going to get in trouble or get banned from something or get kicked out of a sport that you've, obviously spent your entire life trying to master and to be the best at, and, it's so hard to be an elite athlete as it is, and I don't know. My suggestion is just don't do it. So, that being said, that is Equipoise for you. I hope that you got everything out of this that you expected to and learned a ton. So, Gemelli signing off.